I thought I would do a little series on all the foster placements I ever lived in. I lived in 6, so this is going to be 6 parts. And of course, we'll start with the first one. I don't know if you would call this a defense mechanism or a coping mechanism or just my own messed up sense of humor, but I laugh a lot about things I've been through. I can laugh at the trauma. The last couple of years, I've just realised how funny it all is. Before I was put in my first placement, I was homeless for about 10 months. And by homeless, I mean sofa surfing, sometimes sleeping in car parks, sometimes on buses, and I also lived with a boyfriend. He was 20. I was 15. Every now and then when I post a foster care story, there's always 1 or 2 people that comment and say there's no way that happened. And sadly, it always seems to be from foster carers or social workers. Foster carers or social workers who tell me, no, that wouldn't happen, there's no way. So this is what these records are for. These here are my foster care records. These are the ones that I've put in order. These are miscellaneous, which I'm still trying to put in order. These are important ones that I want to keep out because I'm trying to write a book. I envision my memoir to have photocopies from my foster care files in them, so that anyone who ever said there's no way that happened, there's no way, well, here is the proof. So this social worker puts me in a car. I have no belongings on me because they were scattered everywhere. I moved around sofa surf so much that I just had nothing by the time I went to the social services offices. They had been refusing to put me into care for 10 months. An incident happened at this civic centre, an incident caused by me that made them finally decide, do you know what, we'll put this girl in care. So I'm in the car, we're driving, and all the social worker says to me, I'm just going to call the social worker Sarah. All Sarah tells me as we're driving is that the woman I'm going to live with is a woman called Kemi, and she lives in Streatham. That's all I'm told. I have no idea how much this woman was told about me. I've since heard from foster carers that foster carers aren't actually given that many details about the child they're fostering, or they're given incorrect details. I had never been to Streatham before, but I'd lived in Brixton when I was sofa surfing, and I'd spent a lot of time in Croydon. So I'd sort of passed through Streatham on the bus a lot, the 109. And we pull up, so we're driving from where the civic centre was, because I wasn't looked after by Croydon. Even though I was in Croydon a lot, and even though I lived in a lot of Croydon placements, I wasn't actually looked after by Croydon, it was a different borough. We pull up outside this flat, and I mean, the whole car journey there, I look back and I don't think I really understood what I was getting into. I'd been refused foster care for so long that I just never thought foster care would happen. This is how naive I was. This is how little I knew about foster care. I was always under the impression that in order to foster, one, you had to be in a relationship, which isn't true. But I also thought that you had to like have your own house, like your own mortgage. I didn't think you could be a council house tenant and be able to foster, but you can. This flat we pulled up outside was a council flat. I had no problem with that. I'd grown up on a council estate with my mum, so it was all good. I was used to it. My social worker, Sarah, she knocks on the door, and this woman, Kemi, answers it. She's perfectly pleasant on the doorstep. On the doorstep, she was lovely. And she invited me and Sarah in, and we went straight to the front room, which was at the end of this hallway. Already in the living room is a little girl who I thought looked about 9 years old. She was actually 7, and she was Kemi's daughter. No one had told me that Kemi had a daughter. I didn't mind Kemi having a daughter. She looked really cute, she looked really sweet, but I wasn't expecting it. Like I said, you're not given much information at all. Sarah is in the house with me for no longer than 5 minutes. And all she does in that 5 minutes is I have to sign this document like agreeing to these foster care rules. I used to smoke cigarettes, so one of the rules was I wasn't allowed to smoke in the house, for example. That rule's fair enough. I expected that kind of rule, that's fine. There were other rules, which I will go into in a minute. And these were rules that I did not follow. But I had a good reason not to. Sarah leaves, and then Kemi asks me if I would like a tour of the flat. She also properly introduces me to her daughter, who I will call Lily. One rule I did know, because like I said, I was very ignorant about certain foster carey things. But one of the rules that I knew was foster children are allowed, well, not allowed, they have to have their own room. I just assumed that this flat was 3 bedrooms. My room, Kemi's room, and her daughter Lily's room. So Kemi shows me the bathroom, and it's all good. Shows me the kitchen, all good. This is a small flat, but it's fine. Like, I've lived in smaller places. And then she shows me to the bedroom that's closest to the front door. In this bedroom, so there was this pink furry carpet, like those fluffy rugs. Pink one of those. There is a floor length mirror that has a massive crack down it. There's no windows on the curtain. There's one of those little, do you remember like those, I don't know if it was a Barbie thing. It's like it was a doll's head, but then it comes with a mirror as well, like the shutters open and close. And the bed was a bunk bed, but the top bunk was broken. Like the top bunk slats were coming down. Like imagine this is the bottom bunk. The slats were coming down like that. So if you were lying in the bed, these slats would be just above your head. And I'm thinking, what a horrible room for Lily. Like this poor 7-year-old. Her bed's broken, her mirror's broken. There's like no toys in here. There's nothing in this room. Poor Lily. I then find out it's my room. It's my room. Lily's room, which I've never shown, because it's Kemi's room. This bedroom that was now my bedroom was Lily's room, but because Kemi had fostered me now, Lily had to move into her mum's bedroom and share the bed with her mum. To this day, I never saw the inside of that bedroom. I never saw it. This is just what Kemi's telling me. Kemi tells me they're now sharing a bed. And Kemi mentioned that she had lots of experience as a foster carer because she had fostered one child before me. So okay, I think between this other foster child and me coming to live there was about a 6-month gap. So I don't know if Lily, you know, got to enjoy her bedroom, now my bedroom, in those 6 months, or if she just stayed in her room. But I just remember feeling really bad. I felt like I'd stolen this 7-year-old girl's bedroom. It wasn't much to steal, but still, I just felt really bad. And even though like it wasn't my fault, you know, I didn't ask to have my own bedroom. Nobody forced Kemi to foster me, but I felt really, really terrible that I'd taken this little girl's room. And I mean, I can't remember. The little girl must have spoken, right? Lily must have spoke. I don't ever remember her speaking though. I remember she looked sweet and she acted a bit shy, and you know, understandably this stranger has just come to live with her and stolen her bedroom. I don't ever remember that little girl speaking. By the time I was moved in there, so it was about 7 p.m. Kemi asked me if I'd eaten, and I hadn't, but I just said yes because I wasn't hungry and I was just very overwhelmed. Like I just wanted to go to sleep and, you know, wake up in the morning feeling better and refreshed. So I moved in there around the middle of December, I believe, 2010. By the end of February, I was no longer living there. I'm not going to go like day by day what happened, but yeah, I'll tell you the best and worst of it, which is really just the worst of it. My problem was, so for nearly a year before living with Kemi, for nearly a year, I had done whatever I wanted. I had no rules. I had no time to be home, no time of, you know, eat at this time, eat at that time. I would just steal food. That's how I got food. I would shoplift it, or the people I was hanging around with would buy it for me. I had no routine, no rules, no responsibility. So to go nearly a year of just doing whatever I wanted, to suddenly having a time to be home and having a time that I have to eat, and she didn't even feed me. We'll go into the feeding thing. All she fed me was toast. Toast. We'll go into that in a minute. I couldn't adapt to the rules. I couldn't, and it wasn't even just that I couldn't, I didn't want to. I'll be honest, I didn't even try. I was a little as a teenager. I would wait until about 1 a.m. when I knew Kemi was sleeping, and then I would just sneak out and go back to Brixton to stay with the man who I had lived with right before I went into foster care, the 20-year-old. I didn't know if I wanted to share this part of the story, but now I'm actually here. I feel like I have to, otherwise all of this might not make sense. A week after I moved into Kemi's, I found out I was pregnant. And yes, it was as terrifying as it sounds. And the man who had got me pregnant was the 20-year-old who I was living with. We had broken up just before I went into care, and then yeah, once I found out I was pregnant, we got back together. So every other night, yeah, I was sneaking back to Brixton to see him. When social services found out I was pregnant, they did actually contact the police because obviously I was underage. What's really interesting though, what I find interesting is because I lived with this man for 4 months. Social services knew I was living with this 20-year-old when I was 15. They knew the whole time. Other professionals knew about it and had wrote numerous letters. They're all in here. These professionals had wrote numerous letters to social services saying this 15-year-old is living with a 20-year-old. Do something. And social services never did anything until I found out I was pregnant. I can go into how I found out I was pregnant in another video because that's a whole other story. So the police were called and the police had come to Kevy's. So this is 2 weeks after I moved in and I'm still sneaking out, right? So this is all going on at the same time. The man, who I will call Daniel, the police interviewed me and Daniel at the foster placement in the same room with each other. So the police are asking me in front of Daniel if us having sexual relations was consensual. And I mean, it was and it wasn't, in a sense. You know, it's like it's consensual, but like you need somewhere to live. Does that make sense? Anyway, so I think the police really messed up interviewing us in the same room. But anyway, I was like, yes, it was consensual, we're in love, da, 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 we're in a relationship. Blah, blah, blah. So Daniel's still in Brixton. I'm sneaking out every other night to be with him. I don't think I would have snuck out as much if I had felt more at home with Kemi. I was about to list all the things Kemi did that made me feel like I wasn't part of the family, but I think it would be easier to read out the complaint letter that I wrote. It wasn't actually me that wrote it, it was my advocate. I had a brilliant advocate. He was amazing. He always had my back. This was a complaint letter that I wrote on the 9th of February. I didn't stop living with Kemi until the 23rd of February. So even after this complaint, I still had to live with Kemi. And to this day, going through all these records behind me, there is no evidence that my complaint was ever dealt with or looked into. I'll quickly read out the complaint. My legal name is Lauren, but I'm always called Slaney now. In my records, it does say Lauren, so I'm gonna read out Lauren, but it's about me. If you can see these black marks, those are names that have been redacted. So this was written to my social worker from my advocate. Dear blank, I am writing in my role as an advocate for Lauren regarding a number of issues she has raised with me. Lauren has read this letter and has signed at the bottom to confirm she agrees with all the statements made herein. It is hoped this letter will serve as an opening to communication so that her wishes and desires are taken into consideration at all panels and professionals meetings before any decisions are made. The two main areas for concern currently are her foster placement and the education options available to her. Because yes, while I was homeless, I completely dropped out of school. When I went in this foster placement, so my high school didn't want me to come back. I had been a little at school. I was that naughty kid at school because of things that were going on at home. You know, when your home life is messed up, your school life becomes messed up. So I was acting up at school, acting out, dropped out while I became homeless. So social services wanted to send me to this school in Croydon, Coatlands. I think it's either near John Ruskin or it was part of John Ruskin, but it was a school called Coatlands, and they have like classes there for pregnant teenagers. So pregnant girls can still go to maths classes and English classes. They wanted to send me to the school. I kept saying to social services, because when I found out I was pregnant, I read every pregnancy book you could buy in Waterstones. I bought so many books. I would read, you know, week 9, your baby is the size of this. Week 11, your baby has fingernails. Like, I was reading it all. I knew the chances of a miscarriage were 1 in 3, 1 in 4. So when they said, yeah, you can go to this school for pregnant teenagers, I was only 6 weeks pregnant when they suggested that. And I knew I was 6 weeks because I'd had a scan. Because I didn't know how far along I was, they had given me this dating scan and I was 6 weeks pregnant. So then they said, yeah, we're going to send you to this school. And I was like, I don't want to go until I'm past 12 weeks because I know the chances of a miscarriage are high. Social services were trying to tell everyone that I was refusing education, but they didn't explain why. Lauren has strongly expressed that she is not enjoying her placement with her current foster carer, Kemi. She does not like her as a person and feels that she is very spiteful. In addition, there are occasions when Lauren is not receiving the money to which she is entitled to. Lauren feels this is often deliberately withheld. Yep, so while I was in care, I got £10 a week in pocket money. It was important for me to get because not only did I want to save up for baby bits, but Kemi didn't feed me. Kemi cooks food that Lauren doesn't like and buys food she doesn't like. As such, Lauren has had to make do with toast. This has only slightly changed in the past week after Lauren has been complaining for 3 weeks about it. Really bad reading off paper, so the glasses have come out. Lauren is not being taught independent living skills despite having asked to be taught how to cook and how to iron. Lauren often feels belittled by Kemi and this is damaging Lauren's self-esteem and confidence. Lauren has often been told she is ugly. Thank you, Kemi. Lauren, this is the one that's my bad. Lauren is regularly accused of disappearing at night. When Lauren is adamant, she only gets up early to attend appointments that require a certain amount of travel. Okay, so I lied, right? That's an outright lie, we know that. Like I said, yeah, I'd sneak out at 1 a.m. to go to Brixton. And then if Kemi texted me at like 7 in the morning, like, where are you? I'd be like, oh, I left at 6 a.m. to, you know, go on a walk or travel to this area. Lauren has been accused of cutting a key for the flat when she has never had access to it. Yeah, so that was true. I was never, while living with Kemi, I was never given my own key. I was never given a copy of the key. There were so many times I was locked out, which is really frustrating when you're pregnant. Lauren has never had any toiletries bought for her, and Lauren is using body sprays and wet wipes instead of washing and deodorant. When I met with Lauren, she had not washed her hair for at least 2 weeks. Could have fried a flipping egg on it. Kemi often uses up all the hot water in the house and then complains if Lauren doesn't take a bath. Kemi often comments that nicotine patches are killing your baby. This elevates Lauren's stress levels. So obviously before I found out I was pregnant, I was smoking cigarettes. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, I went to the doctors to ask for help on how to quit. And they told me to go on nicotine patches. And they told me that the nicotine patches, obviously it's best not to have any nicotine, but they said the nicotine patches wouldn't harm my baby and it was 10 times better than smoking. But yeah, Kemi said that. Lauren is accused of not bothering to communicate with Kemi, but she often finds Kemi in the front room on the phone, or Kemi's opinion so strong and opposite that she finds it difficult to talk to Kemi. She was definitely homophobic, I remember that. Although Lauren is treated differently to Kemi's own daughter, Kemi has told Lauren that it doesn't matter if you're white, I'll treat you how I treat my daughter. I'm not sure. I remember her saying that to me, but I don't know why. Because I knew definitely that Kemi was treating me differently from her daughter. But I had always just in my head thought, well, it's because I'm not part of the family. It's because I'm not her biological daughter. And it's because me and Kemi's daughter have a massive age gap. But no, Kemi made a point of telling me that, oh, it's not because I'm white. Lauren is understandably deeply upset and anxious about continuing to live with Kemi, far from her friends and family, and would like the local authority to source a new, more appropriate foster placement for her closer to home, e.g., and then it names the town that I'd grown up in. With regards to her education, Lauren is concerned to attend Coatlands so early on in her pregnancy, and she is also worried that she will be unprepared to take her GCSEs as she does not feel that she has had enough time to learn and revise, having been out of school for a year. Lauren would like to be in a local school, such as, and it names one, so that she does not have to take a number of buses to reach school, especially when she is heavily pregnant. I would be grateful if you could respond to the above issues so that we may look into a way to deal with them now rather than let them persist. It is in everyone's interest to find a satisfactory resolution. Please respond to Lauren directly in the first instance with me copied in on the response. There's nothing in my records that shows that any of that was dealt with. I can't remember the exact date it is in my records, but I had my 12-week pregnancy scan. I think it was around the middle of February. I'm not sure on the exact date. My mum was there because me and my mum, we had a very on and off relationship. I'll go into it another time. It's very complicated, but my mum was there. My younger sister was there, and Daniel the older man, my boyfriend, he was also there. And I don't want to go into too much detail at the moment because it's not the easiest thing to talk about, but I found out I had had a miscarriage. Obviously that was a massive shock, but I think the bigger shock was I didn't know miscarriages or delayed miscarriages. I didn't know they existed. I think that just goes to show my age and how naive I was. My understanding was, yeah, miscarriage was, you know, you would miscarry and you would, sorry for TMI and if it's triggering, but yeah, I thought you would just bleed and then you've had a miscarriage. I didn't know that you could lose the baby and have no idea. Hospital said I could either have a D&C, which is surgery, or I could just let it happen naturally and that it would probably be soon. My mistake was I chose the natural way. Again, because of my naivety, I thought having a miscarriage would be just like a heavy period, and it's not. I was in Kingston. I used to go on walks a lot to like help me process things. I was in Kingston, and long story short, I ended up in hospital because I had loads of blood clots. Again, sorry if this is triggering or too much information. At the hospital, they gave me these painkillers, and then I was taken back to Chemmies in an ambulance. The hospital were really nice. The next day, I woke up. So by the way, me and Daniel never saw each other again after that. I wake up the next morning and Kemi and Lily are out. I have to say, I just want to add, Kemi used to push Lily around in a buggy. Lily was 7, still getting pushed around in a buggy. Kemi had taken Lily to get her eyebrows threaded. So I'm at the placement all day on my own. I went from my bedroom into the bathroom. I was in a lot of pain, a lot of agony, and I miscarried. When Kemi got home, she found me on the floor, just curled up in a ball. I'm in the bathroom. She finds me curled up on the bathroom floor, covered in blood and all of that. And she started yelling at me. She started yelling because there had been, from my room to the bathroom, there was a little trickle of blood. And she started yelling at me to clean it up. Obviously me just having a miscarriage, I'm mad at the world right now. And I'm crying, and to have Kemi start shouting at me, I lost it. I lost it, and I told her to go herself, and then just stormed out of the house. I had my phone, but that was it. Just my phone. Stormed out of the house. And I ended up going to South Norwood. It has a lake. I ended up going to this South Norwood lake because I had lived, when I was sofa surfing, I had lived in South Norwood for a while. So I knew the lake really well. So I went to the lake and I was just texting every professional. So my social worker, her manager, my advocate. I was texting them all, and I said, I will sleep on the street until you move me. I'm not going back to Chemmies. I'm going to sleep in a park or on a bench until I move placements. And the social workers are all texting me. They're trying to ring me, right? They're trying to ring me. I'm not answering the phone. And they're all texting me like, go back to Chemmies, go back to Chemmies. And I'm like, no, I am sleeping in a park. And I did. I stayed at the lake that night. I didn't sleep. I just stayed at the lake, sitting in front of this lake on this bench all night. And then in the morning, my advocate texted me and he said, answer the phone when the social worker rings you. They've found you a new placement, which the second part of this mini series will be about. It's really weird because I sometimes think how much that first foster placement really set the tone for the rest of my foster care experience. I sometimes think it was a good thing. Like, what do you think is worse? Do you think it's worse to have a really, really nice foster placement and then it ends for whatever reason and then you're put in a bad placement? Or is it better to just have bad ones from the start? Because I think it was better to have a bad one from the start. It just set the tone for me. It just kind of, I remember I used to lie in that placement. I used to lie in that broken bunk bed and just think, is this it now? Like, is this where I'm gonna be sleeping for the next 2.5 years? I don't know what's worse. I don't know what's worse, having a really good one and then it coming to an end. Or just start with the start with the bad, get used to it. It sets the tone. You know what to expect now. I'm glad I had a bad one from the very start. But that wasn't the worst placement though. And it wasn't the best either. The worst is coming. What's weird as well, I can't help but think of Lily sometimes, her daughter. It's weird to think, so she was 7. she would be 20 now. That little girl I used to live with would actually be 20 years old now. And that's insane to me. Like, I don't think about it often. It's only when, you know, I'm actually talking about this placement that I think about it. But yeah, before making this video, when I was planning to make this, I was just thinking, I wonder what she's doing now. Do they still live in that flat? You know, does she have a job? Did she go to uni? Does she still sleep in her mum's bed? She still sleep in her mum's bed. I have no idea if Kemi carried on being a foster carer. I assume she did, because like I said, my complaint wasn't taken seriously, so I can't see, you know, why she wouldn't have been allowed to foster. It's a good example of, a few people have asked me before, when I've said about bad things that happened to me in foster care or just the system in general. I've had people before, and again, it's always social workers and foster carers, ask me like, well, why didn't you report it? Did you report it? Why didn't you? The reason a lot of us foster children stop reporting things is because when we do, nothing happens. Like I said, before I was placed in foster care, I was homeless for 10 months and I was trying to get into care. My mum, even though she didn't want me living with her, she wanted me in foster care. She didn't want me living with a 20-year-old man. So you just give up. You just stop complaining. You just see it as a waste of energy, a waste of time. But anyway, that was the first foster placement. We've got 5 more coming. I mean, comment if you're interested in hearing about the other placements. That was just the tip of the iceberg. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning a bit more about my experience.